Well, hi, everybody. My name is Dan Other. I'm the Executive Director of the American Academy for Environmental Engineers and Scientists, and I am delighted that you're taking some time out of a busy schedule to join us for our Career Networking Fair, and in particular, to think today a little bit about how to prepare for the Career Networking Fair. It's truly an honor that you're all taking some time out. One of the things that I'd like to do to start this is to thank who we refer to as the patrons of the American Academy of Environmental Engineers and Scientists. The companies that are highlighted here, the utilities that are highlighted here, have all in a very real and significant way given tremendous financial support for the Academy. And so in all of our events, we always make a point of saying thank you to these organizations for being fantastic financial supporters. Once again, my name is Dan Other. I'm the Executive Director of the Academy, and today we're going to talk about some tips to prepare for the Academy's Career Networking Fair. Some of the things I'm going to talk about is introducing who the Academy is and why we're hosting a nationwide career fair. I'm going to explain a little bit of logistics of the event, like how it's going to work. We're going to talk through and work through a few tips. You know, how do we make first impressions, and how do we have our own personal style? How do we have the materials that we leave behind for others? I'm going to explain what I call my pro tip for interviewing. We're going to talk about the kinds of questions that you might run into, areas of consideration that you might want to think about when you're engaging with companies, things you should review about the companies you'll be meeting with, how to play the long game, and how to discuss that which can never be discussed. This is an allusion to the Harry Potter, right? You know, the Voldemort, he who shall never be named. So there are things in interviews that the companies can never mention, but sometimes they're actually useful to talk about. And so understanding what those things are and how you might be able to bring them up at certain points in the career process is important to think about. And then finally, we're going to end with a practice exercise of how to give an elevator pitch, and then conclude with getting any of your questions, comments, and feedback. So why don't I launch in with a little bit of logistics of the event, because I'm sure many of you are interested in that. The Academy was founded in 1955. It is a not-for-profit 501c6. What that means is that the Academy is similar to other not-for-profit organizations, but you've probably heard of 501c3s, organizations that can do fundraising. The Academy is a 501c6, meaning that it is focused like a trade organization. Our goal is to serve a profession, the professions of environmental engineering and science. And one of the things we do is provide board certification. You'll see there in my name where it says BCEE and BCES. I'm a board certified environmental engineer, and I'm also a board certified environmental scientist. What that means is not only did I go to school, and not only did I get a PE to become a professional engineer, but I went on to take an additional test to become a board certified environmental engineer. Think about it like medicine. If somebody goes to school to get a medical degree, and then they go and they do an internship and they pass a board exam to become a physician with a license, and then you go and you get somebody who's like a board certified cardiac surgeon or board certified, cardiologist, right? So I'm a board certified environmental engineer, meaning that I know what it is to do environmental engineering at a very high level. The vision of the Academy is leadership and excellence in environmental engineering, and we do that by promoting continual improvement in education and practice. There are 4 objectives for the Academy, and one of our objectives is all about ensuring the quality and creating pathways for future professionals. And that's why we're sponsoring this webinar. The whole idea of a webinar focused on helping you get better is to ensure the quality of the event. And the whole idea of having a nationwide career fair is all about creating a pathway for you as a professional to excel in your career. one of the things I'd like to highlight for everybody is that as a student, you are automatically eligible for free membership in the Academy. So I'm kind of curious for folks here on this call, members of the American Academy of Environmental Engineers and Scientists? Yes? Yay, Dalton. Others? You actually probably signed up to be a member when you registered for the event. One of the things we ask people to do in registering, hey there, Alex, I like it, I am, right? We're offering this event to our members. And so therefore, when you actually signed up for the event, you signed up to become a student member and to sign up to the event. And you might be wondering, well, what else do I get for being a student member? We have regular webinars, we have regular programming. And so I would encourage you to look at the Academy's webpage. You will now be receiving emails from us. Don't look at those as junk mail. We're not asking you for money. We're actually sharing with you additional opportunities. We run a career fair in the autumn, we run one in the spring, and we run an internship fair in the summer. We support student chapters at universities. We support people to study for their PE exam. We support ABET accreditation of degree programs. We help people learn what it is to become board certified. So we want to ensure throughout the course of your career that you're successful in environmental engineering and science. That's what we're about. Does that make sense? Sound good? All right, so look at us as your employees. We're here to work for you. And right now, you get to have us for free. Later on, when you graduate and you get one of those jobs and you have more money, then maybe we'll say, hey, would you like to help support us? But right now, we're here to support you as free student members. We're going to have a career fair networking event. Now, we call this a career networking fair because we want to be really clear. We've divided this into two tracks. Track one, undergrad students meeting with reps from HR programs. Track two, graduate students and postdoc trainees meeting with more the technical recruiters. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be technical people for track one. That doesn't mean there won't be HR reps for track two. But the idea here in bifurcating the process was that track one is meant to give you multiple opportunities to get some nationwide exposure to a number of different employers. It's all about networking. Track two is a little bit more about linking folks that have some shared interest. We link those across all sectors of environmental engineering and science. So if you're moving from undergrad student to grad student and looking at a future career fair and thinking, where do I go to get nationwide exposure to jobs? Think back to the Academy. You'll notice in track one, you're going to get an opportunity to meet with about 5 or so different companies. In track two, it'll be a smaller number because we've made the amount of time that you're meeting shorter in track one and longer in track two. You'll be receiving an email from Marissa, myself, that has a schedule for you for tomorrow that says, based on the preferred times that you shared with us, here's the time we need you to hop on the Zoom link. You don't need to be there all day long. You're going to be, our preference is that you would certainly join a few minutes early. We will be using Zoom breakout rooms. And so you'll drop into the Zoom breakout room with myself and Marissa. And as the clock ticks by, we will move you, push you into a breakout room with a company. And in that breakout room, that's where you'll have either your 10-minute speed networking or a 15-minute, a little bit more of an extended interview. Does that make sense to folks, kind of how it's set up with track one and track two? Fantastic. I appreciate that. So one of the things we want to transition into is thinking about some tips of some career fairs. How do you engage online with companies? And to be able to start that, what I'm going to do is stop my sharing, and I'm going to invite you to tell us a little bit about who you are and introduce yourself to the group. I'll go first. I'll call on an individual. I'll say, hey, you're up next to introduce yourself. and I'll mention who's comes up afterwards, who's on deck. And so that way I'll just be calling through as I'm seeing people on my screen. So Jinjae Zhang, you'll be up first, and Kelly Conway, you'll be on deck. You'll be up next. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself, and then we'll just move through quick introductions. My name's Dan Other. I'm the Executive Director for the American Academy for Environmental Engineers and Scientists, and I am passionate about the success of people in our profession. I thoroughly enjoy being the executive director because it gives me a great opportunity to meet amazing environmental engineer and science students, practitioners, and educators. And I am passionate about protecting the planet, protecting people's health, and doing that through environmental engineering and science. Jinyi, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, of course. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. So my name is Xinyi Zhang. I also go by Joy. I am currently a postdoc research associate at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And I've also got my PhD from University of Illinois. My area of research mainly focused on quantitative sustainable design of sanitation and resource recovery systems. So I am really interested in using computational tools and statistical methods to help inform decision making in the design, development, and deployment stages of early stage environmental technologies. Yeah,
Thank you.
happy to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Kelly, you'll be next, and then Dalton after her.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly. I'm a last year PhD student at UC Berkeley, and I've been studying water purification membranes, so different applications of membranes and novel materials for water treatment. And I am excited about the career fair because I want to learn about like what kind of opportunities there are for PhDs in industry and to start exploring those options and those employers. So,
Wonderful. Thank you, Kelly. Dalton, you'll be next, and then Tashfia, you'll be after Dalton.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dalton. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. I study biorefinery sustainability, so the monetary costs of producing biofuels and the environmental impacts of producing fuels. I'm really passionate about the intersection of technology with public policy. So I'm really passionate about like communicating the results of my research to legislators and policymakers. And I'm excited to do some networking with people with similar interests. So, thank you.
Tashfia, and then Rachel.
Hi, I'm Tashfia. I just defended my PhD last month, and so that's why I'm in this career fair networking session or whatever that's coming up. So my research was pretty interdisciplinary. Although my degree is from environmental engineering, I collaborated with the material science department, and in my research I borrowed concepts from material science to make water purification membranes more sustainable. And because I use a lot of advanced characterization tools for that, and my research is really very niche. So I'm here just to figure out if there is a position for me, or like what opportunities that companies may have that I could fit my skill set into.
Wonderful. Rachel, and then Jinyu.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, great. Okay. I'm Rachel. I am a PhD candidate in environmental engineering at University of Minnesota, although I recently relocated to Massachusetts. I'll be defending in January. I study wastewater treatment ponds, so rural applications in cold climates, specifically nitrogen cycling. So I am also interested in finding out what kinds of career opportunities are available for PhDs in industry, especially with varied interests.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rachel. Jinyu, and then Shajab.
Xing Yuan. Apologies, seeing as that I was caught a while ago.
Oh, no, you're great.
Yeah, I'm a fifth year PhD in Stanford. I'm actually in chemical engineering, but I have been working on electrochemical methods to recover and convert nitrogen from wastewater. And my PI is an environmental engineer by training, so he encouraged me to I guess look for more opportunities in this more environmental engineering area.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Shajeb and then Gaijong. Gayong.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shazib Samuel. I'm a first year graduate student at Drexel University in Philadelphia. I started my graduate studies in January, and my research is focused on nitrification in building water systems and how effectively to control nitrification in premise plumbing, more specifically. Happy to be here. Looking forward to the networking event and interested in graduate positions that consulting firms, environmental engineering firms might offer tomorrow. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gayong and then Alex, please.
Hello, my name is Gayon Kim, and I'm a postdoc at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. I'm developing a mechanistic model to predict the effluent quality of wastewater treatment plant. Actually, I'm not applying yet, but I attended this meeting to see what kinds of options we have. So thanks for organizing this networking event.
Wonderful, thank you. Alex and then Leanne.
Can you hear me?
We gotcha.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hi, my name is Alex. I'm probably the only undergrad here. I'm in my senior year at NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. And then I'm going to transition into my grad year right here at NJIT. I'm volunteering in a lab, in an environmental biogeochemical lab. We are studying the fate and uptake of phosphorus. And I'm very interested in site and soil remediation.
Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome. Leanne and then Yinfa.
It's Leanne. I am also an undergraduate student. I'm an undergrad at Northwestern and I'm a sophomore right now. So I don't really have a specific area that I am dedicating myself to yet, but I joined this career fair because I'm interested to see what work is being done in the environmental engineering field. And I would like to talk to people who are already working and see what opportunities lie ahead for me. Yeah, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You fun.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We gotcha.
All right. My name is Yifan, and I'm currently a postdoc at the University of Oklahoma. And later this year, actually this spring, I got my PhD at the same institution. So my dissertation was on the phosphorus removal from the wastewater using the noble sorbent, mostly biochar based. And now I'm working on the research project about removing the nitrate from the wastewater. And these two research projects, they are all based on utilizing the agricultural waste to treat agricultural wastewater. So I'm really interested in forming the loop or forming the using the second generation nutrient. And also I'm very interested in using the life cycle assessment to figure out how much environmental impact all these materials or all these industrial processes could pose the impact to the world per se. And I will soon be done with the University of Oklahoma as the postdoc, and I've been looking forward to gather more information as much as I can, and then moving on to either academia or industrial. And thank you for having this opportunity for us and looking forward to the real networking session.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Marissa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, guys. I am the marketing director here at the Academy. I've been here for a very long time, and I handle things such as student chapters, webinars, any sort of marketing and social media. And I'm happy to be here and happy to help you guys any way I can.
Thanks, Marissa. Well, thanks, everybody. Now, one of the things that I have done when I kind of got on this Zoom was start with a little bit of an example of what you may want to think about doing or not doing when it comes to the introduction of yourself, your first appearance online. You'll notice I'm going through a few changes here between when I first logged on and when you might be seeing me now. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I just want us to be thinking through what a career networking fair might look like. And we're going to go through and look at this in a few slides, but I don't want to just do like, talk over PowerPoint and bore people to death. I want you to be thinking about what are options for you presenting yourself and engaging in a career networking fair that makes maximum use of your time and effort. I'm sure many of you are very savvy with Zoom, but the idea of, do you have even lighting? Do you have back lighting? Do you have top lighting? The reason why you can see more side lighting from my window is because I have my lights off because my thinner hair makes me have too much of a shiny head if I turn my overhead light on. And I don't have my ring lights right here at the spot that I'm in because I picked this spot to kind of give you an idea about what it can look like to make an impression that perhaps might be more or less positive to somebody that you're trying to present yourself to. So you might want to think about what you're doing in a background, how you're sitting, how you're presenting yourself. You'll notice that I've actually adjusted my name so that it reflects some of my credentials. For those of you that have a PhD, perhaps maybe you want to have that reflected. For those of you that have a license, maybe you do. Maybe you want some kind of affiliation. I know that some people have affiliations associated there. Some people don't. You might want to think about what's a flattering background color and how your clothing does or doesn't help. I know it seems like little stuff, but when we think about what we're trying to accomplish in this kind of like Zoom networking event, it's the same kinds of things that you would if you were actually at like a real career fair. So some of the tips for us to be thinking about, and I'm sure many of you are already familiar with these, is that when you first get dropped into a breakout room with somebody, they're going to immediately get their impression of you. What's your camera quality? What's the mic quality? What's the lighting look like? How much background noise? How does your name appear? What's your choice of background? What's your attire? And the reason why I'm encouraging you to think about this is that we may have a certain way we use Zoom on a daily basis, and we might want to adjust that when we're using Zoom, particularly for a career fair. And so I just offered that perspective because first impressions go a long way. The other thing to think about is you're going to be making first impressions multiple times in the same hour, in the same session. It's really easy to get jazzed up and make a good first impression. It's much more effort to get jazzed up and make a good first impression 3 or 4 times in a row. And so think about doing what's going to help you be comfortable so you can make that first impression over and over again. The second thing is to think about your style. Now, I didn't write positive words and negative words. I wrote positive and less positive. There are some ways we can come across to others where they walk away saying, wow, that person was dynamite. They were really interested in our company and they were engaged in a conversation. Boy, they're very thoughtful and inquisitive. You don't want them leaving thinking that you're desperate for a job, that you're overbearing in your views, that you're a know-it-all, or that you ask inappropriate questions. So your style and how you first appear to somebody is really critical to have a successful career networking fair. How you appear to folks, not just in this like 10 minutes, but what they're going to see when they go to look for you online is also going to be really important. If I were to stop sharing here and to instead share a document where you could kind of like, search about me. Let me see if I can find the Safari page that I was looking for. And you were to throw in the name Daniel Other and go look online, I've taken some effort to make sure that what you find online about me looks pretty good. Now, you may or may not be at the stage where people have written Wikipedia pages about you, or that you have that's not what we're talking about. We're talking when people go to throw your name into something like a Google search engine, is the stuff that pops up going to look professional, or are they going to come back and wonder what's going on with you? So I make a point of maintaining a number of different social media presence, whether it's on X or whether it's on LinkedIn. And I post a mix of personal and professional material so that when somebody would go to learn about me, they have an easy way of kind of asking difficult questions without needing to ask questions. Now, I'm not suggesting that you've got to adopt the approach I use. I'm suggesting you want to think about how to be intentional in your approach so that when somebody throws your name in a Google search engine and scrolls through it, the stuff that comes up looks pretty favorable. The things they click on look pretty favorable. It's not that what they see online is going to necessarily land you the job, but what they see online could lose you the job. And so if you've got things on social media that you probably shouldn't have up, it might be good when you're engaged in looking for a job to think about turning some of those off, or adjusting the name that's associated with it, or making sure that even if something is for fun, that the for fun is not something that's going to cost you an opportunity for a job. Does that kind of make sense? Another one that I would encourage you to think about is that many people operate LinkedIn as a way to kind of like share who they are. And I am not promoting like, hey, you've got to use a particular platform or not use a particular platform. But one of the ones many professional recruiters will think about is what's on LinkedIn. And you notice that the way my LinkedIn profile shows up is that my name actually reflects some of my credentials. And you might think, well, that's kind of odd. How did you get that to occur? I actually changed the surname in my profile to include my credentials. So if you were to look at LinkedIn, my name on LinkedIn is Professor Daniel B. Other, BCEE/S DLAAS FAAN. In other words, Daniel Other is there, but it has the other materials there associated with it. Other tricks or things for you to think about is, what does your banner display? What does your particular image display? And how are you promoting the things that you are featuring at the top of your profile? How do you change the things that are appearing as stories that you've posted or posts that you have put up? Now, it's not that you need to rush to go change everything overnight, but it is helpful, particularly in industry, to have a reasonably good LinkedIn profile, because many people in industry in particular will go and take a peek at your LinkedIn profile. One of the other tricks that you may or may not be aware of is how to string together multiple positions in the same organization. Like maybe you want to string together that you were a graduate research assistant, and then maybe you had a fellowship, or maybe you earned your PhD and then also did a postdoc all at the same institution. The key to making it all show up with the same organization, but to highlight your different roles, is to have your start and end dates consecutive. You'll notice I've been associated with the Academy for 10 years and 9 months. But from 2002 to present, I've been the executive director. From 2001 to 2002, I was the president. From 2020 to 2021, I was the president-elect. So if you look at all my experiences associated with the Academy over 10 years, you'll see that there's a series of consecutive things that I've done with the Academy. So somebody could look back and say, Dan was a treasurer for a while. Dan was a vice president. You might want to think about how you put your credentials, your portfolio of activities onto LinkedIn so that it looks like the kind of thing that other HR or other folks making hires would be expecting to see. Imagine if folks took your LinkedIn portfolio or your LinkedIn profile and they printed it out or digitally turned it into a PDF and shared it with somebody higher up or somebody across the organization. That's not an uncommon situation to occur. And so while I'm not endorsing LinkedIn, I am encouraging you to think strongly about having a reasonable looking LinkedIn portfolio because it is a very common one that people are accustomed to taking a peek at, particularly in the utilities industrial sector. That makes sense to folks and kind of like some hints. All right, so definitely do a Google search on yourself and your name, find out what's coming up. Just kind of keep track. You don't need to obsess over it, but you do need to pay attention to it and play a good game of offense there on how you appear in that professional space. Other things for us to be thinking about is what I characterize as a pro tip for any interview. I have made this mistake myself many times. Somebody will ask me a question. I think I'll understand their question and I'll start to answer it. Stop. For any question anyone asks you, be sure you understand the question. It is completely appropriate to parrot back or rephrase the question to make sure you're answering the right question. You may hear something, go to start answering, and be answering completely the wrong thing. Or you might hear something and answer it the wrong way because your brain in a high stress interview makes mistakes. So I think it is very wise to use a parroting or a paraphrasing back. Somebody asks you a question. Tell me a time you struggled with an ethical issue, and you say, I really appreciate your question. Let me describe a time I struggled with an ethical issue. If your question that you repeat back is wrong, the interview will stop you right there. No, that's not what I ask. Then answer the question directly. Plus, elaborate your best concrete examples of where you're already demonstrating a best practice. Remember, when you answer a question, that's your time to brag about yourself and focus on the positive, measurable impacts. I will hear students talk about things like, and I published a paper. That's great. Has anybody cited that paper? Has anybody used it in their work? I hear students talk about how I did really well on a homework assignment. That's great. Did that work get incorporated into anything beyond? So the question is not just what did you do, but how do those things you've done have measurable positive impacts? Folks are going to ask you primarily, first and foremost, in job interviews. Remember, this is career networking fair. But in job interviews, the mindset of the interviewer is they want to know how your past employment experiences matches their current position needs. They are there to decide, do they want to or not want to hire you? And so their primary thought process is networking and getting to know people, but they're networking and trying to get to know people that are going to match what they're looking for. So it is wise for you to pitch what you know, what your experience is, because you don't want to put a round peg in a square hole. They're going to be interested in your general information and knowledge, your related experience, and getting to know you as a person. The questions are going to be in this kind of space. They're going to want to know about your knowledge. And here is where students in particular often stumble when it comes to thinking about the kind of knowledge that recruiters are interested in. See, we tend to, as students, think about our cognitive knowledge, the knowledge in our head. It's the most common thing that we're learning in school. But actually, our head knowledge has a very, very short half-life to it. What you've learned to do in the lab or what you've learned to do in the classroom, 2 years from now, there'll be a better technique. 5 years from now, there'll be a whole new way of understanding something. What companies are interested in is also your heart knowledge. Why do you do the things you do? Looking for corporate culture and how you fit in corporate culture is vitally important. Your hand knowledge, your psychomotor knowledge, the how you do stuff, that's what companies are going to make money on. So you being able to show that you match with corporate culture, that you've got skills that they can monetize and make money on, those are important areas for you to consider. As students, we tend to think about how much is in my head. Companies don't need to necessarily go by people based on the head knowledge. They're buying you based on you fitting into a corporate culture and you being able to get work done. Some things that we've got set up for you is that you should go take a peek at the companies and utilities that we have set up. Delaware Solid Waste Authority, Geosyntec Consultants, the Los Angeles County Sanitation District, the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, Peer Consultants, who's an international firm that's headquartered in Washington, D.C., Stanley Consultants, that's a national footprint primarily focused around Denver, Colorado. The others you either heard of or from the name Delaware obviously have an idea of where that would be geographically located. These are general purpose environmental consulting firms. These are wastewater and water utilities. These are environmental science related consulting firms. These are solid waste. So this is a range of organizations that will be engaging with you. It's wise for you to go read a little bit about their mission and vision, their objectives and strategies, some of the tactics they're using, because it's important for you to know how to align your goals and practice with the employers that you might be going to work for. Oftentimes, new hires are most interested in very practical questions. How many weeks of vacation do I get? What is my salary going to be? And those are important questions. But if you want to show a higher level of maturity as a potential employee, they're going to be more interested in you asking questions about how do you get mentoring at the company? How is the company going to support your continued growth in education? It doesn't just necessarily mean formal degrees. It might be your licensure. It might be your credentials. How will you continue to grow as a professional? I know it is really tough as a student to have spent all this time and effort getting to this point of graduation and then think, and all that is the cost of admission to the game of a career. But that's really all the education is. It's the cost of admission to that longer game of a career. And so understanding how you're going to fit into a company or fit into a utility or fit into a consulting firm and how you're going to continue to grow professionally. When the interviewer says, and do you have any questions for me? Or are you curious about my company? Asking questions that are in this space is a lot more powerful than asking questions like, how much am I going to make? And how do we discuss that which can never be discussed? What if you and your life partner are a two-body problem and you both need to move companies or locations? What if you take care of an aging parent and you've got geographic constraints? What if you have those that depend on you, like children, or you're thinking about having children? It's not legal for a company to ask you questions like, are you married? Do you have a child? Are you taking care of an older parent? That's illegal. But boy, is it helpful for employers to be able to tell you about things that are useful for you as an employee. I would encourage you to think about, not early in the process, not first impressions, but later on in the process, as you're engaging with organizations and you start to feel comfortable talking with them, to understand through some good questions, what are the services that those companies provide, that those utilities provide, so you can be successful as an employee? Do they have flexible working for different times of the day? Do they have flexible working for different geographies? What do their time off and benefits look like? What does it look like to be able to think about having family medical leave? Do they have childcare on site? Do they let people do remote work so you can take care of an aging parent? Do they have programs that help what we often refer to in the biz as a trailing spouse or a two-body problem? Do they have programs in place to help somebody also find work besides you, but also a life partner? You don't start off your interview with those questions. This is not the kind of stuff that will come up in your discussion tomorrow. But these are the kinds of things you, as somebody looking for employment, should be aware of and thinking about. Companies have thought about this a lot, and they provide the resources to make your life be more pleasant as an employee. They're not allowed to ask. You are allowed to ask. The last thing I want to do is think about the elevator pitch. Now, we've got some folks on here from a range of different universities. I don't want to make you feel like, hey, there's anyone that's better than any other. So, I grabbed some examples from Harvard. Of course, everybody would say like, well, they must be good, right? Here's some elevator pitches that Harvard explains to some of their students. Now, this is across the whole range. You'll notice that when I did my introduction of myself, I used words like I am passionate about. I talked about things like the future of the profession. I just want to highlight a few key words in some of these elevator pitches. For those of you that aren't familiar with that term, the elevator pitch is an idea like you got on an elevator with somebody that could hire you, and you had like 15 seconds to say something important. How do you, in 15 seconds, explain who you are? Let me show you some of the key words I noticed in these different elevator pitches. I noticed in the first one, the person told me they already had a job as a reporter and an editor, and they wanted to use those existing experiences to work as a journalist. That first one is clearly a person that knows exactly the job they want and is highlighting the experience they have to get the job. The second person, very similar, a decade's worth of experience in accounting, and they know the type of job they want. Consultants are part-time people hired on specific things. The third person is doing a similar, I've got years of experience. I've opened my own office. Come be my customer. Come be my client. The last three are much more from a motivation. My passion is to. That's a person who's clearly not talking about their particular job. They're talking about their particular heart condition. I'm a lawyer who grew up in Ohio. I want to join a family-friendly firm. They're sending a clear signal of a geographic preference and a clear signal of the type of people they want to be around. My name is Sarah, and personal touches make a big difference to our customers of our family-owned business. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody with a PhD from Stanford is talking about personal touches. That's not. I'm suggesting that you look here and say, you know what? In the words that I'm pitching, there are things that help another person know what I'm looking for. Think back to how many of us introduced ourselves at the beginning. We talked about, here's what I've done in my laboratory. Here's what I've done in my classroom. Here's the skill I've got. That's what's already in your resume. What are you looking for? What tells us something about your heart? What tells us something about your hands and the experience you've already got? How does your elevator pitch lean in as you introduce yourself so that you're more exciting and more dynamic than your list of cognitive to-do head skills that most of us think about when we describe ourselves? I can do skill XYZ. That's great, but you're going to be here at our company for the next 30 years. How are you going to fit in, and what other skills are you going to learn and grow with? Again, from Harvard, things that are encouraged, keep it short and sweet, focus on the essentials, be positive and persuasive, and practice. Here's the way we're going to practice. I'm going to open some breakout rooms, drop you into them. Can do skill XYZ. That's great, but you're going to be here at our company for the next 30 years. How are you going to fit in, and what other skills are you going to learn and grow with? Again, from Harvard, things that are encouraged, keep it short and sweet, focus on the essentials, be positive and persuasive, and practice. Here's the way we're going to practice. I'm going to open some breakout rooms, drop you into them, and ask you to go practice your elevator pitch and bring you back here in a minute so that you can tell me what you've learned about some other people's elevator pitches. The breakout rooms are open. Please drop into those. Marissa, I guess I assigned you one too, huh?
Oh, did you? Let's see.
Maybe it's shared one for you too. Got to make sure. Think.
I don't see one.
Good. Poof. I got it right. All right. Wonderful. All right. I guess we could always trim this part, or you can stop recording. I don't know how you want to handle that part.
Yeah, I could trim it later. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Someone had a question. Did you see that question? What if some of the concerns are deal breakers, like geographical limitations?
Yeah, that'd be a great one. I'll bring that back and talk about it.
Okay.
Oh, so and you saw the one where she asked if she could be part of the event because she signed up for the practice. So
Yeah, so I told her to email me. We can get her.
perfect. All right.
How long is this breakout room?
I'm looking at the time. I want to give them another minute.
Okay. Excuse me. All right, I'm going to go back to close them, so then they'll start trickling back in. Okay.
Welcome back. Hi.
Daniel, I guess as we're waiting for other people to come back, I have a quick question. Do
Yeah, of
you
course.
know, I guess, do you know the approximate size of this mixer event?
So you'll be, yeah, great. And that's a great question. Maybe we'll ask with everybody. You'll be actually teamed up with some one-on-ones. So you'll come into what will look like this kind of larger room, and then we'll be pushing you off to breakout rooms to meet one-on-one. So you actually will get one-on-one time with a person from a company.
I see. And I guess, do you know like how many people have registered for this whole event?
I think we're around what, 30 right now?
About
Ish.
30. A little bit more, maybe.
Thanks. Yeah, that's really helpful.
No, those are great. And we can, yeah. And Rachel, I saw your question in the chat. I was going to get to yours as well. So
I feel like you answered it when you were talking about kind of indicating preferences in the elevator pitch. So that's what I was actually talking to Leanne about, was including that in my elevator pitch. But I have another question,
yeah,
if you
of
don't
course.
mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am wondering if everyone's going to get a chance to speak with every company, or if there's some way to sort of like list your preference somewhere for like what companies you're really, really interested in.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So nobody offers a nationwide career fair, and we did our very first one basically just focusing on kind of like, undergrads and kind of like quick thing in the autumn, or excuse me, in the spring. This is our second try at it, and this was our first time to do it kind of for multi-hours and try to like schedule people. And so it's just like any other thing. It's just continuing growing pains. So poor Marissa has to deal with me. You can see she's smiling, but she's smiling through the tears because I'm like, let's just tweak this a little bit and give it a shot. And she's like, oh my goodness, just nail it down so I know how to. I'm like, oh, we'll make it work, and and we'll, so basically the short answer to it is we're working towards that, and we will give you the best event we can and give us candid feedback, and we'll keep making them better. Does that make sense?
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, and so Jingyu asked a great question when she came back on. She was like, okay, so like how many folks are signed up, and and how are we going to make this work out? Rachel asked a great question there in the chat, like, what if there's a deal breaker, and like, hey, I'm never going to go to that place, or I'm not going to be interested in that industry. Let me just share, a couple of kind of points of view to think about as we wrap up. You never know who you are going to run back into in our field. There are only 40,000 environmental engineers in the entire United States. There are only 60,000 environmental scientists in the entire United States. So for folks who identify themselves as an environmental engineer or environmental scientist, you're only talking 100,000 people. Many of us have grown up in a small town or lived in a small town, right? Many of us have gone to a university, right? So you think about being in a university where there might be, 20 or 30,000 people on campus, or living in a small town that might only have 10,000 people in a small town. When you start talking about fields of practice that only have 40, 50,000 people, you run into a lot of the same people. There are only so many sewage treatment plants. There's only so many cities that have 1 million people, right? So globally, while there's lots of opportunity, and I don't say this to stymie that there's huge opportunities, I say this, that we run into many of the same folks over and over again across our career. So to your question, Rachel, about like, okay, so, if it's not the right fit for me now, should I just kind of like not waste their time or my time talking about it? You never know when the person who is in charge of a place in one geography is going to relocate and suddenly become your boss in another geography, or you never know when the technology that you're putting in place will be the technology that they just had previously. So those are all the space to be able to kind of to navigate. I see your question. So how to continue the conversation to be informative instead of an interview. And that's a great point. You'll notice that we've been very intentional to refer to this as a career networking fair. you are going to be matched up one-on-one to speak to somebody from a company. But that company has not told you they've got a job in hand that they're hiring you for. So view this more like speed dating than asking somebody to marry you. This is much more like a first date than it is an engagement. Does that make sense? To use metaphors, right? So the purpose of this exercise is for you to practice what it is, for you to meet some people, and you never know where that's going to lead. It might result in some of you actually landing a job based on this initial 10 to 15 minute interaction. It might result in a few of you meeting a person who then introduces you to the next person that then helps out in the interaction. That's the community of engagement that we're trying to build by having it as a career networking fair, as opposed to a, here's my 3 jobs, I'm looking for 3 people, I scan through the stack of resumes, here's the only people I talk to, end of story. We're trying to make it more inclusive than that. Does that work for folks? Kind of give you a sense? Are the companies participating tomorrow the ones shown in the slide earlier? Yes, they are. Great question. Marissa and I have been working on a schedule because, of course, those folks are like, here, I'm available at this time slot. You guys have given us your, hey, I'm available at this time slot. So you'll get an email that'll be a little bit more definitive, like, hey, here's some times, so that you'll be like, okay, I don't have to like sit here waiting all day. I know what times to go in. It is nice to appear nice. But I don't know that appear nice means that you have to put on, your best clothes as much as maybe your collared polo and you look good and you come across as a professional. That's often the way consultants and utilities are working. Nothing that hurts when you kind of up your game. I mean, first impressions are first impressions. But the idea here is for us to have a career networking fair. All right, any final questions or concerns? I would like to invite all of you, though, to give us some feedback. We will send a survey for those of you that were here, kind of that Likert scale. Hey, this was useful, this wasn't useful through the agenda. This point was, valid for us. This point wasn't valid. This point, hey, you messed up, you missed the basis. The idea here is for us to be able to improve so that the next time we offer one in the spring, we've got it just that much better. And we would encourage you after you engage tomorrow as well, when you're filling out the survey at the end of the event and you tell us about the prep, also tell us about your impressions of engaging with those companies. Were they some of the right people? Did they speak with you in a way that was useful? What else would you suggest that we do to be able to make this more beneficial for you in the future? Should it be at a different time? Should it be in the evening? Should it be on a Saturday? Should it still stay in the middle of the day? Should it be a series of different Zoom links that are throughout a week or two rather than trying to have it in a block? We're open to all of those suggestions because we want to do what accommodates you and the company's schedules. All your universities will have your own local career fairs. We're a platform that's trying to offer something that's national in scope and that's just focus on environmental engineering and science, but all of environmental engineering and science, whether it's air, water, solid, the whole portfolio. Thanks everybody for joining us. I appreciate you taking time out. We're looking forward to your feedback and have a great event tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.